All right, let's get started. It is wonderful to see you all here. Golden and RTD have been great partners over the years, and we hope that relationship will become even closer after tonight. We have all of City Council here tonight. My name is Marjorie Sloan. I'm the mayor of Golden, and this is our home. We're really appreciative of your coming out this far from your office in Denver. Casey Brown is Mayor Pro Tem. Paul Hazeman is on City Council, as is Laura Weinberg. Those two are both ward representatives. Right behind Laura is Rob Reed, who is also a ward representative. And in the baseball cap is Jim Dale, another ward counselor, and Saoirse Karras Graves is a district counselor. And we have been concerned about West Light Rail service, and this is a great opportunity for Golden to share its concerns and for RTD to give us their information. Now, RTD is really well represented here, and I hope I get this in the right order and the right titles. We have Peggy Catlin is the vice chair of the RTD board. Next to her is Shelley Cook. She is the RTD board representative for our neighboring community, basically from Arvada. Right. And then we have staff members as well. We have Michael Ford, the Chief Operating Officer, Jesse Carter, who is Manager of Service Planning and Scheduling, Kim Kinnison, Senior Planner of Rail Service, Mo Sullivan, Rail Service Planner Scheduler. So they're here to hear us, so we really appreciate their coming out. And Natalie gets a special introduction. And also in the back is Jason Slowinski, our city manager. Now, it's my privilege to turn this meeting over to our RTD board representative, Natalie Menton. Natalie has been our representative. This is your second term now, correct? It is, 6 years. And she pops in to Golden City Council meetings when she has something to share with us. And we appreciate that, and we very much appreciate her organizing this group this evening. So Natalie is going to run the third part of the description of the service planning process. And I'm sure RTD board members and staff will pitch in as asked. So Natalie, here's the microphone. It's yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll just get right down into it. Again, my name is Natalie Menton, and you're sitting right now in District M of the RTD district. There's 15 districts throughout the metro area, and these are large areas. Each of us in our district has roughly about 180,000 constituents, which give a comparison, a state senate district is about 120,000. So RTD is really quite a large area for each of the districts. Again, Natalie Menton, and what I'm going to go into here first is the issue that I think most of you are here about, and that's typically the way we start off our service hearings, is to know for sure what the interest level is in the audience. Who is here about the W line changes only? Okay, so I got about 7 people there, roughly. Let me ask, based upon, because we do service changes 3 times a year, who is here about something other than the W line? Okay, so we're all here about the W line. Okay, all All right, that helps us to narrow down what we should be addressing within this discussion. We have come to the city of Golden in the past, and Jesse Carter handed out some information to you that gives you a historical view of the ridership and the most current figures that we have. The W line, when it was originally created, was supposed to go to a certain length. And then during a period, there was a section added on that really was not part of the original plan, but it got tied into it. And that was partly due to some influence. I'm not going to name all the names, but I know specifically Jefferson County was interested in seeing a section, the segment that goes all the way to Jefferson County Government Center. This is a segment that we are talking about tonight, and it runs from the Federal Center Station to Jefferson County Government Center. This change does not affect from the Federal Center going down to Denver Union Station. We have come to the community before and tried to mention that we really have to deal in efficiencies within the RTD district. We have a very spread out community that we need to service. And when it comes to public transit, if you do not have density, that in itself creates some challenges when you're servicing the area. So speaking of just the segment that is up for a proposed change, again, Federal Center Station to the Jeffco Government Center, the proposal has been brought forward in the past, and we are bringing forward again because we have not seen enough ridership improvement or increase within that segment, is to change the Saturday service from a 30-minute headways, from 15-minute headways to 30-minute headways. So what this means is if that somebody on a Saturday, the day that we are proposing a change on, needs to take the W line, that means that they are either going to have to wait 15 minutes later, it's a 15-minute difference in the service change. And it would come 30-minute intervals. Now in the evening it's going to be, it's the hour, correct? Late evening. In the evening going up to like 10 p.m., it's still 30 minutes. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm clear about that. When I'm talking about 30-minute, I'm talking about a good chunk, majority of the day, but there is that late night period where the ridership is just, it's very limited, and in most of our system we go to very limited service because there's just not the ridership that you would get between 8 and 5 on a day. And you have all gotten the ridership numbers from the past, and is there any questions that we can start to address right there? Because I think that's really the gist of it. Is when we came to the community a year ago, the city of Golden and RTD, we agreed to give one more year to see if there was that increase. And we really have not seen those numbers increase to justify keeping that service. And this is not just aimed at Golden. This is something we do system-wide. We have to be responsible to the taxpayers, and that means that we need to have certain boardings per hour to justify certain service levels. So, Jesse, if you want to come up here because you may be able to help me.
I'm just going to yell from here. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. I'm loud. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So with that, I do want to interject some good news because overall, the W line ridership has gone up over the years. When we started out in 2013, the service wasn't meeting our productivity standard at all in terms of overall ridership.
Just for recording.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being recorded now. I'm going to be nervous. So with that, I do have good news, and that is when we look at the weekday ridership, the weekday peak periods are very, very strong. We just hit above 130 boardings per hour, which puts the W line, unlike when we started, it puts it back up there with the rest of the services that we have. So there's positive news. Also, the service change that we made back in January 2018 was a reduction on Sunday service. That service still grew. That service is now at about 8,000 boardings on a Sunday, which is also the same amount that we're seeing on Saturday. And that's why we're here. One of the key figures that we always look at is boardings per hour. So we went from, and that's on that kind of colorful sheet that I gave you, we went from having service that was below 100 boardings per hour on Sunday to at 105 boardings per hour. That's where we really want to be in terms of ridership. And right now, Saturday is kind of languishing back at about 92 boardings per hour. It didn't go up because we didn't curtail the service. So the board of directors, it actually dropped slightly. The board of directors did vote. They listened to Golden the last time. There were a couple letters sent in. We did get a lot of input from the city and from the customers, and we held off on making the changes to Saturday, and we implemented Sunday service changes. So what we're proposing is to make Saturday service like Sunday, and that is the proposal. So are there any questions at this point? Sir?
Could you say again the time at which you go to reduce services on Saturday?
Reduced services between Jeffco County Government Center and the Federal Center, it's all day. It would be every 30 minutes.
No, I mean the hour services.
Our service is very late. I'm going to ask Kim because I'm over 50, so I can't remember everything. Kim, what time does it go down to lower service?
It looks like we stay on half-hour service into the 2 a.m. hour.
Okay.
And then we're going down to hour.
I know it's service to what you said.
Okay,
I'm glad we're staying there. Right.
and just so, because we do have this captured, we're going to make sure to repeat the questions. So the question was, during what hours of the day would this now change to the 30 minutes? And the span, I'm just looking it up, but I know you can give me those right off the top of your head. What, 5?
So Monday through Thursday and Sunday, span of service is about 4 a.m. till midnight.
So 4 a.m.
And
to 10 p.m. roughly is when it's going to be going to the 30s. Is that right?
yeah, it doesn't look like we go down on the W line
At all.
at all.
I thought we did.
So if you look,
Yeah.
12:15, 12:45, 1:15, 1:45, 2:15. So those are all 30 minutes.
Okay.
We're good all the way through.
So 30 minutes all day long.
Unless,
And-
of course, you want us to turn it down. No?
No, I just misunderstood. You said it was going to be an hour.
Right, okay.
And apologize, we have a lot of routes within our system, so we do need to refer occasionally.
Yeah, 136 routes, to be exact. Are there any more questions? Seeing none? Oh, sir?
Do you have any other routes that are similar to ours where they go to single track so that the route between the last 2 stops is already half the service from the rest of the line? Is that a common feature or is that unique to the W line?
It's unique to the W line and at the end of the line. It won't be unique after we start up the end line. It is not unique if you compare it to where we started in 1994 with the Central Corridor. That has a single track segment, and that does give us a bit of a headache. Not me anymore. Gives Kim a great headache in dealing with the system, because when you have a single track segment, you almost have to plan the rest of the system around that single track, around the operation of the single track. Okay.
What are some alternative modes, bus or otherwise?
Okay, glad you brought that up, because
Yes.
Director Minton wanted us to bring the information for Route 16.
So one of the issues that's been brought forward due to our fare pricing is whether the challenges on that last segment of the Federal Center to the Jeffco Government Center is that it is priced at a regional fare. And there's 2 ways to get around get around the fare, and that is to recommend to people that if they do live on the central or the north section of Golden, especially, one of the alternatives would be the 16 route. And I want to make sure, I don't know if you can get that or not. And the reason is, one, if, let's say you ride RTD for environmental reasons, and you really don't want to drive over to the Jeffco Government Center, what you can do is use the Route 16, and by doing that, you do not have to pay the $5.25 that you would pay from Jeffco Government Center to go through more than 2 zones, and you would be paying the local fare on the 16 route. So this is another great alternative for the residents, especially those that live in the central section, and going all the way up to the Coors Brewery, the side of town. So that's one alternative for you. And in another advantage is that if you were to take the 16, and let's say you're going down to visit the state capitol or go to something on what I consider, well, more of the capital side of downtown, the 16 would be taking you there directly. Versus the West Line would be going to the Denver Union Station. And if you are, besides environmental reasons, also wanting to save time, that means instead of getting off the W line at DUS, Denver Union Station, and taking the 16th Street Mall shuttle down, you would be going directly to that area on the 16 route. You could also take the 16 route over to the Oak Street Station. Let's say you wanted to go down to DTC or further south on the end. The 16 will get you to the Oak Street Station, and that falls, depending on, let me start, that has to be 2 zones, but then that would be a local fare. So there's lots of options. Where you could find all of these easily is by going to rtd-denver.com, and right on the front page, you're going to find our trip planner. When you put in your destination, the address you're leaving from, and your destination, it will give you 2 to 3, I don't know when I've even seen 2, generally 3 to 4 options on ways you can get to where you want to go.
And also on the handout that I gave you, the 16 is represented as the green line that's going above the light rail line.
And if you like carrying paper, we do have also the 16 route schedules if that's of interest to you.
So with that, any more questions? Sir?
I guess when all this first started, I got the assumption that you're going to cut off the W line from the Federal Center to Golden. And I thought, what a disaster that would be. And I guess since I've lived here since the 60s, the W line's the best thing that I can think of that's happened. And plus, you think of all the people that have moved into the area in the west, and I see your numbers on here have gone up considerably since 17 August to 18. It's only going to increase more. With all the condos and everything that's built around.
Right. That was not our intention, wasn't to cut off the line. And matter of fact, any change that we make, as far as the service goes, we're going to be following warrants. So if the demand increases, we would come back and look at actually increasing the service as well. So that was never our intention to cut it off altogether. It is growing, as you said, and I'm really, really pleased with what happened with Sunday. We reduced the service. It still grew by 2,000 boardings over the previous year, and that's exactly what we would like to see.
Yeah, and I guess also the positive side, 30 minutes doesn't bother me, I guess, since I'm retired, so I don't have a problem with that. Plus, I get a senior discount. So
All right.
I got positive on both sides.
Yeah.
But I just kept thinking, if you end up cutting it off, that'd be a mess, just trying to park at the Federal Center, because that's packed all the time.
Right. And our peak period service on the W line during the weekdays, extremely strong. So well above our standard. It's above 80 boardings per hour. So it's solid. Midday is in the mid-40s. So as long as that continues to grow, those are the numbers we'd like to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my wife and I just got back today from downtown. And I thought, if we had to drive down there, forget it.
Well, I had to drive out here.
So can I ask, where did you get the impression that we were cutting it off?
I guess some stuff I picked up in the paper and everything, and it seemed like my wife and I both picked up that the line might end up being cut. Also, even come back to Red Rocks. And I thought, well, there's no place to park around there, it goes back there. Of course, like I think I understood earlier, the price is different if you come to Red Rocks or the Federal Center than here in Golden.
Yes, Jeffco Government Center is within the regional zone versus a local zone.
You got one in Red Rocks, got one in Federal Center, you pay the same as you do in Golden.
Red Rocks is also
Right. Depends on how far you.
regional. But unless you're doing a kiss and ride, isn't it?
The fair, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Red Rocks is within the local. But to use Red Rocks, as you mentioned, unless you're biking or you're coming from the college, or somehow connecting maybe off the 17. That would be difficult. So,
I can't beat it, you know, for the light rail service on the way to the airport. I mean, we just got back from a trip last week, and we take the light rail out there. I probably wouldn't have taken the trip if I had a dog out there, and you know, paying $9 a day. But then again, it's a senior, so.
okay. So in summary, for the record, this gentleman was under the impression that we were going to cut out the service from Federal Center Station to Jeffco Government Center, and that is not the case. And since he is a retiree, the 15 minutes will be just fine with him. And as for rates, he's a senior and admits that, and good with it, and very happy. Okay.
Any other questions? Still fishing?
You know, a lot of folks in Golden use the service to get to the airport, and that'll have some effects for them. But I'm wondering if you can tell us if there's any future plans, since the bus service in the north half of town, the 44L, it was cut and dropped. Are there other plans to add additional services that might get folks to Ward Road so that should a future G line ever open up, would we be able to take that to the airport?
I'm going to jump in for 1 second first.
Sure, and what I'm going to do is, if I can have your card, that's a question. I can't remember exactly everything in the G-Line plan, so I don't want to give you wrong information tonight. Sure. So if I can get your information so I can contact you to answer that question. It's a great question.
Yeah, and for that density that's up there, it makes it a challenge. You got a lot of industrial, and that just really is not a driver that, in my opinion, for public transit, especially different work shifts, things like that. I think what my recollection is that there were hopes to do it. So first hurdle is get the G line open, okay? And then, as far as I know, there was nothing firm on the, we're going to enact it versus like Route 125, which connects Federal Center Station, going up Applewood area, which is really kind of an east side of Golden, not technically Golden, but has mailing address. Right. But I don't remember something firm on that area, and partly is it's just very tough. I mean, as I started out the beginning, density. Unfortunately, the bad side of density, I'm not a big fan of density, so it's a tough call.
All right, any other questions? Director?
I have a question, but maybe you might want to address some of the operator shortage that we've been experiencing because of low unemployment, and that also factors into some of the changes in the service because we don't have enough operators to operate all the lines across the system.
Actually, I couldn't say it any better than you just did. So, yeah, actually, we are experiencing Denver metro area is at about 2.5% unemployment, which is extremely low. And right now, we're about 105 operators short. So normally we have almost 1,100 operators. So being that short is impacting our ability to provide the service that we have out there already. So as Director Caitlin mentioned, that is part of the reason why we're looking at some of the changes that we are. Also, we are about 60 operators short on the rail side, and we're, again, struggling to make sure that we're not dropping runs, and we're having to do things like mandating, and that's requiring people to actually work on their days off, which is something we hope to get out of at some point.
The good news is, though, that you said 120 operators short?
105.
105.
We were.
Used to be 180.
There you go. Yeah.
So we are improving.
We're making some headway.
That has to do with the latest collective bargaining agreement. So
That's
we've
right.
taken steps to improve that and
Yes.
improve worker conditions, but it's a slow process.
Thank you for mentioning that.
By operator, you mean?
Bus operator, rail operator,
Okay.
the folks who actually do the real work. Right. Sir?
So since we're taking topics other than the 15 to 30 change, can you just give us an update on progress on the low income pass program and the summer release of that program, things on schedule? Where's the low income pass program stand?
As far as I know, it is still on schedule for summertime release. There's still negotiations going on between RTD and the state of Colorado on the portal to, for people to go to register, apply for the program. So there's in the works right now, what do we name the program? And there was an update last night through the Financial Administration and Audit Committee, and there does not appear anything to be anything out of sorts. So hopefully that answers the question for you. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to move us into the next set of, after this question, we'll move into the next.
Could you explain why Jefferson County, the Golden, the W9 is just right outside that zone and why it's the only station outside the zone?
Yes. Every 3 years, we go through a fair review and go to the public. 3 years ago, so this would have been in 2015, we went through a fair proposal. And at that time, our system was even more complicated than it is right now. And at that time, Jefferson County Government Center, if I looked right in my Trailblazer book, was actually $5 for the fare. And from Federal Center Station, so Golden was considered regional. The Federal Center Station was considered express, and it would have been $4, if I'm remembering right. Further east of there would have been a local fare. So at that time, gosh, it was $2.25. It's been 6 years. So forgive me if I'm not remembering correctly. But it would have been a local fare. So we had 3 different types of regular fares: regional, express, local. We decided we wanted to simplify the system. We went through a very intense, long process with countless, well, not countless, but 20 to 30 public meetings easily on what should we do with our fare system. Because it was so challenging that if I had been made to take a quiz, I wouldn't have done so great. What are all the different fare options that we have? As we move through that process, we tried to determine, should we charge by a distance? Should we charge by a time? How long are you going to be taking it? And we had a lot of public feedback, and we went from here to get more public feedback and take a step back and forth. At the end of the day, we decided that a radius outside of Denver Union Station would be what we would use to set the fares. There were more than a few stations within the district that, because of using that radius from Denver Union Station, were in the regional zone. And it just so happens that along the west line, where that line was drawn between Red Rocks Community College and the Jeffco Government Center, is what created what you asked about.
Steve, could you go back to the previous image? There's just, when it comes up, it looks like, and just zoom out so you can see it a little bit more. So I guess it doesn't quite look like a radius to me. It looks more like there's pockets that aren't quite a exact radius.
The map isn't drawn to scale,
Okay.
so it's more probably being very artsy with the lines and drawing it. When you do actually look at the map, the concentric circles are a better representation of where the boundary is.
Yeah, and we were ready at one point to make, during all of these discussions that I told you about, went from here back and forth, really, we were totally driven on what do the users want to see out of this system? What is the consensus? We had people all over the place. I take this local trip, and I take long trips. At the end of the day, Boulder was the one that came in with the last minute. We opposed the plan, where Golden would have been local, because they felt singled out. But in reality, Boulder's like 20 miles away. And based upon them coming in, some other different factors is what created the final plan. Now, I said that we do our fare proposals every 3 years. So we just went through another one. And in this proposal, fares increase because of certain things. Prices increase. People earn more money. It's all those different things. But we added in some good things, and that is that when you look at these fares now, instead of it being a one-way trip, let me give the example of, let's say we were talking about the local, just because I have this right in front. This would be based off a 3-hour in any direction, $3 for any direction. So if you were taking a short trip, and let's say you wanted to go from the north side of Golden, and you're going over to Colorado Mills, and you're going to do a little bit of shopping, and then you're going to go back home. I'm talking buses right now, because I'm just trying to go to, it's the same, it's a 3-hour in any direction. Okay, so I'm just using this because it's a visual. But let's say it's the W line, you would still have that 3-hour one way. So let's say you get on at Jeffco Government Center and you want to go over to Oak Street Station because there's your favorite, whatever, pet shop, and you're going to buy some thing there. And you can get back on and go west within that 3-hour period. You're only paying the one fare. Okay, so, every 3 years we address our fares, and it is a long process. It won't be very long before we're going to start working on the next one. I'll be off the board, so I'll be a little bit happy about that. But you'll have a new representative, and I would say start your feedback early. I know there's already a considerable amount of people in Golden that feel that segment especially would be more utilized if it was within the local fare. So, talk to your local elected officials. Okay? Okay.
Could I suggest that relative to the previous comments, concentric circles are much more understandable, less artsy than hot things are.
Right.
So it'd be nice to go back to concentric circles, just for simplicity.
Sure. But, one of the things that we're trying to do with this map is illustrate, certain important features in the downtown area. So if you look at that map, downtown looks huge. It's the size of Texas. But if you look at the areas around it, they're nowhere near where, because one of the lines going up and down, that's I-225 from downtown. It's nowhere near that close to downtown. So
This makes us in Golden feel short.
yeah, I agree. I like maps with real distance.
Yeah, but go ahead. Can you zoom out just a little bit on that, Steve? All the people down in DTC, they feel like they got shortchanged. I won't even go into the R line, where in a very short amount of distance, you will travel through the 3 zones. The station is, let's say you're in the rural metro center, and you want to go to 40th in Colorado. So you started right here, and you're going right there. You went through 3 zones. I would not be happy about that. So Golden's not the only one.
Sir?
Just looking at that map, if you extended that line to Golden by 250 meters, you would not change anybody else on the whole route. So with 250 meters, we'd be a local, but everybody else would be not affected. So why can't we do that?
It's 1.4 miles, Jesse.
I'm sorry?
It would need to be said 1.4 miles.
1.4
And
miles.
that would change 8 other stations as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So, the folks in back of you are,
Well, looking at the map, I'm just saying, if that's the map you're sending to others, that doesn't look like 1.4 miles compared to the DTC area.
exactly, you have to go back to that other map and then it would look right.
That map has to be printed on various media, and so it has to be stylized in order to
Right, in
print
order for it to make sense.
correctly.
Yeah.
While it's not ideal to show distances, it is ideal for printing it on things.
Printed.
Yeah, I'll give you some ammunition for the next board director to make their life exciting. Why should Denver Union Station be the center of the world?
Right.
Maybe.
Now,
Why?
What?
Let's go ahead, I'm interested, why?
That's generally not where I need to go downtown. So is it the center of my universe? Should it be the state capitol?
Well, I just want to carry my thought just one step further, and that is, on the whole line, we're the only one, we get outside of the local thing. And people now drive to the Federal Center and jockey and try not to hit each other as they try to get spots to park. And they think about doing it at Red Rocks, but have long since given up on that. So if you want to see ridership go up, make that a local stop, and you'll see ridership go up at our station.
okay, I'm going to ask you to repeat that when we get to the public comment section of this. So with that, I'm going to use that as a segue, mainly because I'm concerned about getting home before tomorrow, but also because, the most important part of any meeting like this is actually getting your input. The input that we take in tonight will be attaching to the board report that will go before the board. And again, the board is actually voting on this in March. So with that, Mo, I believe you're taking notes? Okay, very good. So I'd ask that when we call on you, if you can just state your name so Mo can hear you and we can paraphrase what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Can I interrupt here?
Absolutely.
We have an agenda that I believe RTD approved, and we have just completed Roman numeral 3, which is your description of the planning process. All right, next on the agenda is Roman numeral 4, and City Council is going to be expressing its comments.
Right, and we definitely want to take down those notes.
And then we'll go on to general public comment. And I will leave it up to you if you want to call on people at public comment, or I know many of the names here if you want me to call them. That's up to you.
We're going to beg you to actually call them names then.
But in the meantime, we will go to the comment by City Council. And you've heard at least questions from some. I would just like to emphasize that the City of Golden has long been a supporter of transit in the Denver area, and specifically the planning and development of the W line. The Jeffco Golden Center is a pillar of Golden's transit, and it's also essential to your entire regional system. So we're here tonight to talk about the Golden Jeffco Center. Notice what I did there. Sometimes it's Golden Jeffco, sometimes it's Jeffco Golden, because that was a compromise when the light rail began. So the city, along with Jefferson County, which is we are the county seat, and the Colorado School of Mines, we've continually together supported the success of the W line and the very important first and last mile transportation opportunities to help build the success of the entire system. I'd like to count just a few of these efforts. We secured funding and constructed the pedestrian bridge over US 6 at the end of the line station. That was deleted from the W line in the value engineering phase. This bridge connects 2 neighborhoods and hundreds of nearby residential units, as well as a significant employee base. And every time I go under that bridge at 6th Avenue, I look up, and frequently it is used. So it was a good investment. Golden and Mines partnered to secure a grant for the initial flex route for the first 3 years after the opening in spring of 2013. Golden, Mines, and Jeffco are contributing 100% of the cost of a 4th weekday bus on the flex system, so that now the flex route buses match the 15-minute weekday schedule. Golden also implemented a bike library, providing additional transportation alternatives for residents and visitors. And Golden and Jeffco continue to construct missing sidewalk sections to facilitate pedestrian access to the end-of-the-line station. All these efforts were designed to boost ridership and transit support in the area. So given Golden's longtime support, the council has several recommendations tonight, and I'm not sure in what order they're going to come up. Laura? And then you call on the next person. I'll hand the microphone to you. This is Laura Weinberg, our city councilor.
Thanks, Marjorie. And I'll just continue a little bit with what's been said. And that is, here in Golden, we have been working and investing our own dollars in making transit a more popular, viable option, not just for the residents, but also for the employees, for many of our primary employers here in Golden, for the students who are at School of Mines, and also for the many visitors that we get, the tourism industry we have here in Golden, where we want visitors to come on transit from Denver rather than driving and parking in our town. So we've been working hard, we've been investing to encourage that behavior. But I have to say, making it expensive for them and inconvenient is a really tough sell. So we all understand that RTD has a very difficult job to take limited financial resources, use them in a fiscally responsible manner. It is hard. It is a big system. You mentioned 136 routes or something, so we understand that. But given the relatively small projected savings in the $100,000 category, and the real possibility that more changes can reduce the current efforts that could harm the current efforts that we're putting in to increase ridership and also harm the long-term viability of the W line. We don't think the schedule should be changed. The schedule of service should be changed to Golden. And just one final thing, a change in service to the Golden Station continues to make the W line cheaper and more convenient from the Federal Center, which will only encourage more people to use the Federal Center as the end-of-line station and not use the Golden Station and originate or end the ride here in Jefferson County, Golden. So those are my comments. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Jim Dale. He's got a few more comments.
Well, it's very important that we're talking about ridership because ridership is what we're all driving for. But if you stop and look at ridership, it's driven by many factors, but service interval and cost, and those who might want to use it. And so I'm very concerned about costs and service interval going from Golden down towards downtown. But who else comes? How about the people that come to Golden? What are some of the customers that might want to come out towards the courthouse? Well, we have the courts there. We have all the county services there. We have human services, the people who have great needs that need to get to human services. They're there. How about there's people that are in jail and need to be able to see their relatives or something? How about veterans? I'm a veteran. I want my colleagues to be able to get to the new VA clinic by coming out, and I want to have frequency of service, and I think it's very important that they could do it in a cost-effective manner. And so those are some people, let alone the citizens, the Colorado School of Mines students, and even the Red Rocks. We cut off the service interval. They're not going to be able to get theirs as easily. I appreciate the discussion of the original Circle Fares. Back when we had only 3 lines and it was a 9.5-mile radius, there was some good thought put into that, and we in Golden said, hey, you're going to put us on a 3rd zone. And then when we got the 5 new lines, a similar situation has happened. And if we had more frequency of service and more riders, then we'd pay for the differential and there wouldn't have to be another zone. So the key thing for us at this 75% fare disincentive is what it is. We need to have the West Line be included in the 2nd fare zone and not be considered regional. If we did that, and I came down 6 today from the Taj Mahal, and cars were backed up almost clear to the Elk Crossing. So if we take and have that problem, maybe we wouldn't have so many cars on the road if we had a little better fare system. So with that, I'll pass it on to any other counselor who might have comments to correct me on or to wrap this up. And it's my colleague, I won't call him Doug, I'll call him Rob Reed. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Jim. I just got back from a trip overseas, and took the light rail to the airport for the first time, and it's fabulous. What I like to do is flip the script a little bit. Everybody talks about, hey, let's catch the train at Golden, and we might have half-hour interval at Golden, but flip it over. Coming back, when you're coming back on the A line and you have to wait at Union Station in the cold, is not that much fun. Yeah, you can go into the bus terminal, but it's not convenient and it's not fun to have to wait at Union Station or any stop downtown. The fare issue is a really important one for the city of Golden because in addition to my role on council, I also sit on the Golden Urban Renewal Authority. We are putting great effort into revitalizing Colfax. The 16 line does not serve Colfax at all. There is bus service there, but it's not as good as the 16 line. We're trying to spend money and resources, first mile, last mile to South Golden, which is a lot of our lower income housing. Sure, the fares are supplemented for the lower income folks, but any deterrent to having people be able to ride from the most convenient location is very detrimental to our overall economic health. The final thing I want to mention is that the more miles we have people put on their cars to drive to the Fed Center, the more potential accidents we have. I grew up in the foothills up the I-70 corridor. If people get off at the Morrison exit and come down to take our light rail from the Golden Jefferson County Center, they're not driving that last couple miles on 6th Avenue where a lot of accidents occur. And I think that would be really a service to all of the region to avoid those potential conflicts of people driving in the snow for the last few miles to the Federal Center. Thank you. Paul? So I'm good. Sure.
I'm brand new on the board, so still
Sure.
kind of getting acquainted with things. What did you mean when you said the 16 line does not serve Colfax? I wasn't clear.
My understanding, the 16 goes from downtown Golden, Colfax out. I'm talking Colfax from 6 heading up toward the Morrison exit. Going to hand it off to Paul Haseman.
I want to talk a little bit more about the fare system. The line that I was correctly shown to be 1.4 miles, although it doesn't appear that way on the map, I think we could at least evaluate what 1.4 mile change would do to the other stops. Would it knock them out? And if it would not, then it's a very good reason to include us as a local. And there are a lot of reasons why Golden would like to remain a local in terms of the fares, both for the students and as a veteran like Jim, knowing that we now run a bus to the Veterans Clinic, it would be very helpful to have that service available at a rate that veterans can afford. We look back a long time to the interurban from the early 1900s in 880. Golden has always been that last stop. It's always been part of the system. And to make it a more expensive last stop is just inconsistent with how Golden feels about connectivity with the rest of the metropolitan area. So I think we can reevaluate that cost and see if Golden is worth it. We believe it is. Thank you.
Any other counselor offering his or her thoughts? Their thoughts? Yeah.
My name is, excuse me, see if I can get this out, Sarah Shakaris Graves. I'm on Golden City Council as well. Every reason that's been given is, I agree with all of that. I think one thing I want to add about the idea that the Jefferson County Government Center is a regional fair is that we have unique services at the Government Center or in close proximity to the Government Center that serve all of the residents of Jefferson County. These are the folks, it's already been mentioned, these are the folks that are coming out from other parts of Jefferson County to the social services. They need social services, human services. They are involved in the court system, so they're coming out for access to the courts. They're coming out to, as has already been mentioned, to perhaps visit a relative or a family, a family member or a friend that's in the jail. The Veterans Center has already been mentioned as well. This is unique. This isn't just another station. This is a station with extremely unique services that serve all of Jefferson County. And some folks that are coming out to these services are challenged. Perhaps they don't have a car. So they're challenged to get here in the first place. What other purpose does transit serve except if we're making it more difficult for them to get out here, that's a crime against our people. It's just a crime against our people. So we are a unique station in all of the system, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Saoirse. And no other counselors are going to be speaking right now, so this is it. This is a public comment time. And Natalie, how about if we work together on this? I'll shuttle the microphone around and you point to people.
Yeah, and I do want to point out one item, though, because this came up in our last change, that when we do talk about the services, especially those Jeffco Government Center, we got the VA right on the north there. Yep, right over there. Well, if I had my pointer. Is that we did try to adjust this inner line when we did the last fare change in 2015 to make sure that a majority, just so everybody knows the price. The reason I want to share this is that too often I hear somebody say, I paid too much at the RTD ticket vending machine, and I don't want somebody paying more RTD more than they need to. If they're getting on at the Lamar, the Wadsworth station, and going out to Jeffco Government Center, you are only in 2 zones. So you are only paying that local fare, just so that everybody knows that. Okay? So, okay. Just, I don't want any more money in the RTD bucket.
Thank you, Natalie. Why don't we do this by geography here? And I see one person is going to be first, and I will have him speak into the microphone, and then I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, and so for the record, because you do want an address?
No, that's fine, just
Wait a second.
first and last name.
In addition to.
Okay.
Hand it to her. Right. Why don't you hang into that one? And next one will.
Got it. Got it.
Hi, thanks so much. My name is Mike Hughes, and I am new to this part of the world, though I'm not new to RTD. I have just begun a new organization that I hope you all will support, and there will be lots of ways to do that, the West Corridor Transportation Management Association. So while lots of other parts of the region have had transportation management associations, the US 36 corridor and more, the West Corridor never had one until now. So we're just getting started, and there are a million ways that we can actually drive that ridership number up, and we're looking for your help to do that. And I'll give my contact information to everybody and anybody who wants it. And I appreciate the opportunity to offer just a couple of perspectives. One I didn't expect to tonight, but I have some history related to these zones. But first, the real reason that I came tonight is to ask RTD and the system planners and the folks who are really thinking about the long-term viability of this part of the region to give some very careful thought to connecting the W line and the G line. The G line will open, and when it does, it's going to be possible to go lots of different directions for lots of different reasons if the end of G and the end of W are connected in a really meaningful way. And as you do that, you can go through Golden to get there. So there may be lots of ways to do that, and I hope that RTD is going to give some serious thought to some long-term connection there. Second, I want to talk about one of the most important things for the TMA, and that is getting businesses to get their employees together and get them to go on the RTD website and look for what their route would be. Maybe even think about buying an eco-pass, which I know is very hard to do. While your businesses are thinking about that, let me just say to RTD, if you could find ways to make that easier, that would be a great thing. It is very complicated, it is very expensive, and it needs to be less so that businesses are giving passes as part of their benefits to their employees, and we could use a lot more of it. And there are very few in the West Corridor who are signed up for EcoPass or anything like it. A big one, infrastructure. When the time comes to do some more really big investments, there is a way physically to make that W line not only go to Union Station, and you could get rid of that Y and make every other train on the W line go into the other end of downtown. It's not impossible. It's very expensive, but somebody ought to think about doing it because it's going to be worth it. The last thing that I will say that I didn't expect to is that I was the facilitator for all those public meetings at the fair change way back in the day. And so when that last thing with all the zones got talked about, and I have my notes, the consultant did the math that kept the zones. The public who came to those meetings wanted a one price system and get rid of the zones all together. And so I think one of the important things for RTD to really get creative about is thinking about how many more riders there would be if you knew that it was $4. And it was $4 no matter when and no matter where. And you could make this simpler and easier, and there is a huge barrier to people riding because it is complicated and confusing, and people give up and get in their car. So I think the possibility of a one price system and get rid of the zones altogether might be a great idea. Thanks.
Thank you. Natalie?
Okay, I'm just going to, if there's anything that I can add in between the comments I'm going to. So when the G line opens, one of the routes that will connect, not at the end that you're speaking of, but between the Federal Center Station and the Ward Road Station will be the 125 bus route. So that will be one connector, especially with the campus that's up in Arvada. And while we may want to do more capital in areas that are not even in the plan yet, as a reminder, I know that we got the W line out here. We have not fulfilled the other promises as part of Fast Tracks, including Northwest Line, the rest of the North Line, the Southwest Extension, the Central Extension. Just I know wishing, I like wishing too. So, okay, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
So, you want names? I'm Karen Oxman. I used to be on Golden City Council. I happen to have ridden from DIA into Golden to the Jeffco Center. Today, I got off the train at 4:08. And I use it. I love it. I do think what this gentleman said about it being very complicated to use it, because I help people at DIA today with getting their tickets that had not been here before. They were guests here in our cities. So I would like to see us not be in our own little zone world and not have to pay the additional amount of money. I think that's the fare issue, to me, seems stronger than the issue of the Saturday headways. When you think about it, you're really probably not waiting 30 minutes. You're probably waiting maybe an additional 15 minutes is what you'd be waiting. And most of the activity at the courthouse and the activity at Human Services occurs Monday through Friday, and we have lots going on there. So I would really encourage you to look at that fare system and get us out of that space where we are by ourselves. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dan O'Neill. I thought our city council members did a very good job kind of presenting what a lot of people in Golden are thinking, and I would echo their thoughts. I think the concentric circles is a very rational approach, but leaving a single station isolated outside in its own zone seemed like that was probably, not a practical solution, given the nature of that line. And I think also, as has been stated, probably the combination of paying a higher premium for being in that last zone and then also having reduced service is probably going to be counterproductive in the long term. So, thanks.
Thank you, Dan.
My name's Bob Beckwar again. Pardon? My name is Bob Beckwar. The question I've got, I'd just like to kind of give some more initiative. I know what the time is. If you get on the light rail here in Golden, you get the timing right, how long does it take to get to DIA? I can tell you.
It's longer than driving.
It's an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you avoid all the traffic. So that's the biggest benefit I could ask for.
Anyone else in this center section? Don.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'm Don Cameron. A cursory review of ridership values for all stations shows that Jeffco Government Center is right in the middle of the pack, ranking 27th of 59 stations for ridership. It's higher than Oak and much higher than Red Rocks. So being at the end of the line creates a draw for people that's important. People from the I-70 corridor will come first to the West Line, Jeffco Center, before moving closer to town. And given the general alignment of the line near Colfax, it's easiest to start a transit trip at Jeffco Center. I'm speaking to you tonight not about the schedules per se, but on the cost to go to the end of the line. A review of the Service Development Report of 2016, updated in April of 2018, shows that the W line has the lowest subsidy per boarding of any of the lines in town. I'm very concerned that the raising of rates, or for that matter, the current rates, disincentivizes people from boarding at Jeffco as they can move closer to town for a cheaper ride. I was surprised to see that the Federal Center has similar boardings to Jeffco Center, but suspect that the increased fare will incentivize people to go to Federal Center to reduce their transit cost. The fact that other lines are more highly subsidized to me says that the problem of ridership is not at the end of the Jeffco line, and it's not fair to add a further burden of extra cost. I see no way to analyze the data to parse out full fare versus eco passes or other ways people may pay. I personally would drive to the Federal Center or Oak to avoid the additional $2 to go a few stops. That might provide insight to how many full fares RTD would forego if the fare was reduced. But given that the West Line is currently the least subsidized and ridership is likely to continue to grow as Lakewood builds out its transportation-oriented development, I would like to ask that the Jeffco Center be added to the next fare zone and have its fare the same as Federal Center, Red Rocks, and Oak Street stations.
Thanks, Don. Over here.
Thank you. My name is Scott Weber. I've lived in Golden since 1995. And this past New Year's Eve, a friend of mine and I went to the Avalanche game and was coming back from said game and was forced to get off the train at the Fed Center and wait in 8-degree weather for the next train to come. By the time we got on the next train, my friend's hands and feet were so cold she was in tears waiting at that station for the next train. So my point is, Golden people get screwed both ways. We get the highest rate going out, and we get dropped at the Fed Center coming back. We need to be treated like this. Get us to the Golden Center coming back, and get us the correct rate going out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in this center section wants to speak? No. Jen.
Hi, my name is JJ Trout. I work at People for Bikes. It's a national bike advocacy organization, so I clearly am a fan of alternative transportation, although I'd like to see it be sort of just normal transportation one day. People for Bikes commissioned a research study across 8 metro areas, one of them including Denver. And we wanted to understand people's aspirations for mobility, including what motivates them to choose their mobility options. It was no surprise that people are frustrated by traffic, congestion, and they're ready for more transportation options, including public transit. In fact, 75% agree that the only way to solve traffic problems is to give people more options to get to where they are going, including bike lanes and public transit. Another major finding was that people are motivated to choose their transit options based on schedule. So what that means is, based on my schedule for work, my schedule for play, I'm gonna make a decision to take the car or the bus or the bike, depending on what makes most sense. So I currently take the GS bus into Boulder, and it's a 30-minute to an hour sort of wait in between. And some days that 30 minutes is just too much, so I have to drive in, increasing my vehicle's miles traveled. And so similarly, I also take the train into the airport station on Saturdays when I'm doing my travel, and it's sort of that same option, right? So you might say it's an extra 15 minutes, but to me, that's just the difference between hopping in my car or taking a transit option. So I just like to say, schedule is a really big motivator for people, so an extra 15 minutes when we're not retired might be an issue. It might kind of keep people from using public transit options. And I would like to echo our city council rate makes a big difference as well. So if we could figure out how to make the rate come down, I think we would see a big increase as well.
Thanks, JJ. Anyone else in this part? Okay. Jim Dale has another thought.
Hi, Jim Dale again. I have the honor of serving on the Denver Regional Council of Governments, and one of the big jobs we have is to try and look at transportation alternatives. And JJ really outlined a lot of the issues, whether it's bike, transit, either rail or bus or car. And at Dr. Cog, we put a lot of emphasis on this, and we put a lot of arm twisting on RTD to be thinking about the issues that we face all the time. So Dr. Cog's, that's what they call Denver Regional Council of Governments, the emphasis is on multimodal and use to make the best use of our bucks and to think about what we could get better from our friends at RTD. Thanks, JJ.
Thank you. We are reaching the end of public comment unless anyone else has been inspired. We will turn the microphone back over to RTD, and we're getting close to the end here.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for your comments. Those have been recorded. They'll be shared with the entire board. And if you should happen to know of anybody that could not make it to tonight's meeting, we have one more coming up. And so we had, that'll be on the 21st of February. And if you grab one of these, it'll have the detailed information. But that'll be at the Rood Recreation Center, which is just south of I don't know what they're calling it anymore, the Broncos Stadium, whatever the name is. That'll be the 21st, and that'll be at 7. I thought it was at 7, but it says 7:15 on here. Is that? It's 7:15. It is 7:15. Okay, all right, okay. So if you don't know of anybody, or if you know of somebody, I'm sorry, who could not make it tonight, they're welcome to come to that meeting. And also, within this guide here, I'm guessing, I'm just going to make sure. Yes, right in the middle of the back here is the email address to send comments. Again, that'll go to all of the board directors. And we will be addressing these issues, all of the service changes that are in here, at our Operations and Customer Service meeting in March. And it'll go before the full board. So our process is it goes through committee. There needs to be a majority vote to put it forward to our full board. We're a committee of the whole, so we're on everything. And public comment would be at the regular board meeting in March if you would like to follow up with some more comments. And that is right at the beginning of the meeting, so you don't have to spend hours there like we do some nights, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie, and all the RTD staff for being here. We really appreciate it. And I remember, how we also appreciate you did give us another year, and you honored that. We had this as a similar kind of meeting, and we talked about don't completely change the weekend schedule, and we reached a compromise, and we appreciate that. We would like to be continuing good partners with RTD, and we will continue to work on boosting the ridership at our station, but cutting service and having the higher fare is counter to that goal that we both share. So we hope you'll keep all these comments in mind tonight. And we do appreciate folks from the west side of our metro area for coming tonight. You all were, very cogent in what you said, and you hit the mark. For now, what I'd like to do is have a round of applause for our RTD representatives and staff members. They work hard, and I know you are intent in increasing ridership, not just on the W line, but through your whole system. And we hope we've given you some ideas about how we can work together to accomplish that. That said, thanks everybody for being here, and it's time to call this at the end of the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Natalie.